Good evening from Lagos, everyone. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. This is Beyond 100 Days. Our attention on the show today is turned to Edo State as we stay on the Federal High Court ruling on the state PDP governorship primary. Justice Enyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court in Abuja has voided the People's Democratic Party governorship election in Edo State that produced Aso Ighodalo as its candidate. The election conducted on February 22, 2024 was voided on the ground that 378 delegates who were supposed to vote at the primary election were unlawfully excluded by the PDP. Justice Ekwo nullified the primary election while delivering judgment in a suit instituted by the aggrieved delegates. The suit was instituted by one Kelvin Mohammed in a representative capacity. Justice Ekwo held that both the provisions of the Electoral Act 2022 and that of the PDP guidelines were violated in the conduct of the primary election at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City. Let's get the conversation started now. Andrew Eweta is the lawyer who filed the case on behalf of his clients in court. He's also a former commissioner of communication and orientation in Edo State. He joins me now on the program live from Abuja. Also joining me is legal practitioner Anthony Ehilebo and former APC Guber aspirant in Edo, who is now with the PDP, Victoria Abu. Gentlemen and lady, welcome to the show. And by the way, we want to hear from you, our viewers. You can join the conversation on social media using hashtag Beyond 100 Days. Remember to tag at TVC News NJ and at Nifemi Oguntoye. Share your thoughts, ask your questions, and let's get the conversation started. Mr. Eweta, let me begin with you. The judge was quoted to have said the exhibit presented shows that the returning officer sat down in a place to manufacture the outcome of the poll. On what specific grounds did you file this case on behalf of your clients, and what evidence did you present in court?
Yeah, thank you. The plaintiffs and the 378 other ad hoc delegates on whose behalf this action was brought were duly elected on the 4th of February this year, when the PDP had its 3 ad hoc ward delegate congress in their respective wards, which of course covered the 127 wards in 12 local governments. And there were certain statements in some quarters, particularly by the 4th defendant in the suit, that the results of that particular congress would not stand. So it was that fear that they would be excluded from the primaries that made them to file that action. And the court actually gave an order for the party to show cause. That order was served, when they refused to accept service, it was served on them by substituted means. And instead of obeying the order for these persons not to be excluded, the party went ahead with its primaries. And the grievance of the mistake most practitioners on the matter are making is that they misconstrued the decision of the court as one touching on the primaries. No, it was the issue of the Congress, the ad hoc delegate Congress, for which these persons emerged, and they are saying that they are the lawful delegates that have emerged from that Congress that will participate in the primaries. And the court actually declared them as a lawful delegates. And of course, those other persons that, just as you noted, whose names were written by one individual across the 192 wards, the court said these persons were not delegates because the persons who approached the court presented results signed by both the returning officer and the electoral officer appointed by the second defendant, the PDP.
Hold that thought a little, Mr. Eweta, if you can hear me.
Respect their constitution.
Are you saying that the delegates who conducted this primary in Edo aren't recognized or registered? It couldn't have been just 378, right?
These persons were amongst the other delegates that participated, but what the court evaluated were 2 sets of exhibits. First, the exhibits tendered by the plaintiffs and the 378 delegates, whose results, as the name implies, exhibits B, ID 8A to 8L, right? The court looked at it, the probative value. These results were signed by returning officers appointed by the party and the electoral officers. But the one tendered by PDP, right, those parties were not in court. Those delegates were not in court, unlike the other case they cited, Norama's case. It was only one person, the governor of Enugu, that signed all those results. So the question the court asked was it possible for the governor and the secretary, one Pascal Adigwe, to have been in 192 wards? And that is what made the court come to that irresistible conclusion that those results were manufactured, because it's not possible for one person to be in 192 wards for a process that lasted for 5 hours.
I hear you clearly. I have to bring others into this conversation, but just for the sake of context, what is the total number of registered delegates for that election?
I think it's about 540-something. I'm not too sure of the number, but I know it's a little above 500.
All right. Mr. Haylebo, let me bring you into this conversation. How come your party is saying that this judgment did not affect the candidature of Dr. Ighodalo? How do you reconcile PDP's claims of a free and fair primary with the court's ruling which suggests otherwise?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. First of all, I think this whole confusion was brought upon by sort of the effervescentness of my learned colleague there, Adaze, who went to town quite wrongly, I must add, because I've just summarily gone through the judgment. And there's nowhere on that judgment I saw any consequential orders to the effect that it mentioned in any way, manner, or form, Dr. Asue Ighodalo or even the PDP primaries were not even a subject of the judgment. And I will do well because I listened to your intro, and you followed that same line that he had set up immediately he came out of court. Unfortunately, the counter narrative put out by SAN that represented the 3 other parties, knowing that the 4th party stepped down, was very clear when he said the judge never mentioned Asue Ighodalo and never mentioned anything about the primaries, because of course he could not have mentioned the primaries because the Electoral Act 2022 is very clear, section 84:14, very, very clear as to who can challenge a primaries, not a delegate, an aspirant is the most right person to challenge that primaries. But let me even say this. For all intents and purposes, and I'll state here for declaratory purposes, that I was a delegate of the primaries that is in contention here. I was a delegate of Ward 1, Igwebe. And I know that primaries happened, and I can explain in detail that every primaries, as the way the PDP conducts its primaries, all the results are taken to Benin. And I have also been an agent at such primaries. You take your result sheet to whoever is the chairman and secretary, and they run it through. The results that they sign are the results that are sent to Abuja, and that was what was tendered. And you know, let us be very, very clear about this. And I think the media has to be very...
Mr. Haylebo, let me quickly follow up on your thoughts here. Just hold on a minute. Just hold on a minute. Hold on a minute, yes. Mr. Haylebo. What part of the judgment are you contesting? Are you saying Justice Ekwo did not say specifically that the exhibit the PDP tendered was bereft of evidence, and that he found that the returning officers who prepared the result sheets only sat down in a place to manufacture the outcome of the poll? He also added that the exclusion of the 378 delegates, including the plaintiff, was against the provision of the law. Are you saying that wasn't part of the judgment?
No, it was not part of the judgment. I can read the judgment to you, and the judgment is very, very clear. And so you do not misdirect or confuse your viewers. The judgment, I am holding it in my hand, and I can show it to you, is the judgment of Justice Ekwo. I can read it to you, and I'll tell you what it says. I enter judgment on the terms as follows. A declaration is hereby made by virtue of the provisions of Section 53 of the Constitution. The defendant, as amended in 2017, the plaintiffs, together with the other lawfully elected, whose names are there, blah, 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 and he says, were excluded from the primaries slated for 22nd of February, which is now an academic exercise, by the way. An order is hereby made directing defendants who are bound by provisions of Section 82. These are the orders. There are 3 orders, and there's no order there that is consequential. There's no order in this judgment, and I'm reading to you. It's a certified true copy.
Hold on, Mr. Haylebo, so that we can make sense of this conversation. You will have to summarize that judgment for me. What exactly was the judgment talking about? You can't read the entirety of it in a 25 minutes program. What is the summary of the judgment that you are reading? That's the question.
And there's no need to badger me if you let me explain, and so that you do not continue down the path of misleading your viewers.
Answer the question. We don't have the time to read the length of the judgment. That's what I'm saying.
It's summarized in 3 paragraphs.
All right.
It's very clear. It's very easy for you to read it. I can send it to you now. It's very clear. And these are judgments made as to the rights of the delegates.
Again, you are not answering the question, Mr. Ehilebo. Hold on a minute. Perhaps you didn't get my question. What is the summary of this judgment? What was the judge saying?
The judgment in the 3 paragraphs of the judgment deals with the rights of the delegates, not the primaries, not the candidacy of Aso Ighodalo, which you stated at the beginning of the show, that the candidacy of Aso Ighodalo has been nullified by the courts. And I'm telling you what the judgment says. The judgment is very clear. And it was a misdirection by Adaze Nwata, who is speaking on your show. When he came out of court, he misdirected the media and the entire general population that the candidacy of Aso Ighodalo has been nullified. And the primaries have been nullified and the candidacy invalid. Which I am telling you that I'm reading the judgment here.
Yes.
And the 3 paragraphs of the judgment is a 3-paragraph judgment. It mentions nowhere the primaries of the PDP. It mentions nowhere Dr. Aso Ighodalo. And only says focus on the right of the delegates.
All right. Mr. Ehilebo, let us take a short break. And then when we return, we're going to bring some more clarity into this conversation. Stay with us, everyone. Don't go away.
Ahmed Tinubu do solemnly swear
Legal practitioner Anthony Ehilebo, as well as former APC Guba aspirant Victoria Amu. I'm also joined on the program this evening by Andrew Ewenta, who's the lawyer who filed this particular case on behalf of his clients. Gentlemen and ladies, thank you for staying the course on the program. I'm coming to you shortly, Mrs. Amu, but let me quickly just hear from Mr. Ewenta. You heard the gentleman. He said you fabricated the judgment and that you are causing a major confusion and misdirecting the public. How do you respond?
I will start by saying that Ehilebo is somebody I know, and I will not use words that are derogatory on him. But I think Nigerians are aware he made a specific statement about that judgment. That is a 3-paragraph judgment. That is a big lie. I have a copy of this judgment here. You have 37 pages. And is concentrating on just 2 pages. That shows how duplicitous it can be as a lawyer, quote and unquote. This is a judgment that was delivered by a judge, a very erudite judge. And even when the senior advocate came out from court, after I made my remark, he actually commended that judgment. And he keeps making that same mistake. We did not challenge the primaries, because at the time we went to court, there was no primaries. We were saying we should not be excluded. Right? We are the valid delegates. And the court agreed with us. And if the court has said we are the valid delegates, the question is who elected Aso Ighodalo? I mean, it's just common sense. I'll give you an instance. You say you are the owner of a land, right? Somebody builds on that land. You want the person not to build on the land. He went ahead to build on the land. And in law, there's a principle that says, quid plantato solo sedit. What belongs on the land, what is on the land belongs to the land. So if after 10 years, I now go to court and say, this is my land, the fact that you have built a house, the house is numbered, and the court now says I'm the owner of the land, that property on that land also belongs to me. It's as simple as that. So logically, it is clear that if the valid delegates, as pronounced by Justice Eko, were not the ones that elected Aso Ighodalo, the simple question is, who elected him? We don't have any grievance with the PDP. That's the mistake they are making. INEC is the first defendant. The court has made specific orders on INEC, not PDP, that my friend is talking on his behalf. Because PDP has already violated the court order, has gone ahead to organize its primaries without its valid, persons. And I'm aware that they are going on appeal, so we are waiting for them at the Court of Appeal. And it keeps making reference to Section 84. It's an originating summons. We didn't mention Section 84 in everything that was filed. And the court in its judgment did not allude its decision to Section 84. The court even gave a ruling before the judgment on the preliminary objection that PDP raised.
All right.
And of course, there's a decision, Christian and innocent. A recent decision in 2023 that the court says failure to comply with your electoral guidelines as a political party, your constitution, and the Electoral Act is fatal. And that is what
Hold that 30 minutes, Mr. Ewoita.
We are not going to talk about the primaries because at the time we went to court, ASUA Ighodalo was not the candidate of the PDP. So what
allow me to butt in
to
bring Mrs. Amo into this conversation. Mr. Ewoita thinks that this court ruling has significant implications for your party and the political landscape in Edo State. Did you anticipate this outcome, and how do you think it will impact your new party?
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. It's always nice to be on TVC. There's definitely no impact on this on my party, because this is APC. It's a party who has nothing. They have nothing to campaign with. So they are flying with the next available juicy gist on the street and think they can fly with that and come into government house. So their case can be likened to a person who is drowning, and the person is looking for straws to be able to bring themselves above water. We are not ruffled as PDP. We are not ruffled because this in itself has brought us together as one body, the PDP. And then the issue of delegates, it's exclusively the jurisdiction of party. When did this go into court? Are we seeing the court process deviating from the numerous tasks it has before it and laying emphasis, trying to go into party primaries, party delegates? It's already been stated that it's not within the restriction of the Court of Appeal, the federal court, that they should talk about party primaries and delegates. Delegates are selected from the National Secretariat of the party. And the National Secretariat is always at will to change its delegates.
I hear you, Mrs. Amo.
I do not understand, Mr. Watau. Right Honorable Phillips also had delegates. Philip Shaibu also had delegates on that same day. And I didn't see the lawyer Wata, going to court to challenge Right Honorable Philip Shaibu. Shaibu had delegates. He conducted election, and he said he was the winner. He said his election declared him as winner. So what are we talking about?
All right.
I think they should go back to the party and go and campaign.
I hear you.
Something else to campaign.
Mr. Samu, but I heard you talk about the APC earlier. Were you mistaking APC with PDP? I know you just decamped to PDP, but what's the role of the APC here? I thought the guys who went to court are within the PDP before they got suspended, right?
Yes, I spoke about the APC as I likened it to somebody drowning. They are drowning. And that's why they think that they think that they would get a water and they would get those who decamped to APC to in a battle with PDP. Do you understand what I said now?
I get you clearly, Mrs. Amo.
The PDP is united.
All right.
We are in support of our candidate. And we know that our candidate is the best candidate for Edo State right now. We're tired of persons who lack capacity, who lack the ability to govern, persons who don't have vision and mission. We are tired of people who do not have a clear manifesto about where they're going to drive party
Mrs. Samo,
and the people they govern, and especially women.
I will get back to you.
So Ighodalo is our candidate.
I will get back to you shortly, but you know, it's interesting because a few months ago, you were aspiring to run on the same party that you are currently castigating. But let me talk to Mr. Ehilebo. How does the PDP plan to proceed next? Are there legal avenues you're exploring?
Well, I certainly, like I said earlier, I'm a delegate to the election. My sister is probably in labor now. It was her wedding day. And I remember I left Abuja at 8 p.m. I arrived in Igwebe at 4 a.m. and I was on the field by 6:37 to contest to be a delegate. If Adaze remembers very clearly, there's a point of disagreement in our friendship. And this is the same part we have come back to, being a delegate. And he knows that in Igwebe, I'm one of those people that almost always emerges as a delegate in that election. I participated in that election. The Gabriel Okodua that is in that petition as a delegate, on the day of that election, came, as I'm informed, came to the field, did not even participate in that, because on the register of PDP, he's not even on the register of PDP. It's a verifiable fact. So we cannot, when you ask what the next line of action is, may not even bother about, if you should ask my opinion, not bother about opening up ourselves to any further appeal, because this matter is an academic exercise.
Are you saying the PDP is not going to appeal this case?
I'm not. I mean, the legal department of the party and the candidate will decide if it is in their best interest. But let me say this, please. And this is Adaze walking back. I'm very glad that he has walked back his conversation, because the conversation he had outside the court was quite different from what he just said now. And just for his purpose, the judgment I was talking about that is in 3 paragraphs is a summary of the judgment, and the exact reading. You know, when a judge reads out the entire decision, reason for his decision, he gives his exact judgment, and it's in 3 paragraphs. Now, he's saying he has admitted, but this is not the, the entire grouse that even the PDP has right now with most media houses is the way they ran with the news that ASUA Ighodalo has been disqualified and the party primaries no.
Well, I think that we...
I hope that we're able... No, it's very important. It's very important that media houses run with the same steam and clarify the air and not be misled by people like Adaze, who immediately came out of court and said, and these were his exact words, that the primaries of PDP has been nullified and the candidacy of ASUA Ighodalo is no longer tenable. So please, it is very important that when proceeding in this election...
I hear you clearly, Mr. Ehilebo. Let me get back to Mr. Eweta for a minute. There are some who view your action and that of your clients as disruptive to the party's unity. And I'm wondering how you respond to critics who might say that you are causing division within the party that you're supposed to represent. But just before you answer that, can you tell us what the end game here is? Are you seeking to change the party's candidate? Is that even possible as we speak now?
No, please, I think I must quickly correct a very erroneous impression. The other guy, Anthony Ehilebo, who is supposed to be my learned colleague, he keeps attacking me, and I don't need to attack him. I'm not aggrieved. My client won the case clearly and squarely. He does not even have the facts. He's struggling with the facts. He has not read that judgment. You have a 37-page judgment. He's concentrating on page 36 and 37. I mean, that's lazy, very lazy approach. You are to be on a program. You were supposed to study that judgment. And I will tell you clearly, I came out of that court and I said, well, the court held. The court held that these delegates, the 381 delegates that were excluded, were the lawful delegates. And I said, on the basis of that, you cannot put something upon nothing and expect it to stay there. Because if the court has nullified the people who elected elsewhere, the court does not need to make a pronouncement, because at the time we went to court, there was no party primaries. And we wanted the court to say we were the valid candidates, which the court have said. So what is left for INEC? PDP has no role here. It is for INEC to now consider its records. On its record, these people's names are there, right? You delete their names based on the court's authority. The court has given a judgment, and the court's judgment must be respected. It is only on appeal that this judgment can be reviewed. And as such, and I'll say it here again, PDP does not have a candidate on the strength of that judgment.
We have completely run.
INEC will just read the name of the candidate on the portal.
We have completely run out of time. Mr. Eweta, if you can allow me. Mr. Amwa, Mrs. Amud, Just give me a minute to get your closing remark on this matter. Some would say this development indicates a deeper crisis within your party that could have been averted post-primaries.
He's not a member of PDP. He's not a member of PDP. He's not a member of PDP. Not members
he has gone to APC. That is why I categorically said that.
This is Mrs. Amu's time. Mr. Ailebo, let us hear from her for 30 seconds.
They are trying to hold on to the last straw to be able to cost themselves to nothing.
Is there still a political solution with the suspension of some of these stakeholders, Mrs. Amu?
I'm just telling you that, first of all, we must know that Judge Ekwo did the wrong thing. We must also know that the National Judiciary Council has sanctioned him for this kind of task that he does in the law court. They have sanctioned him. So for us in PDP, we are going ahead.
All right.
We are not baffled.
I hear you.
Nothing is stopping us.
I hear you.
Our candidate is winning.
And I understand.
I think we should go back to the yes.
I understand your perspective, but we can't allow comments that undermine the authority of the judiciary. We like to avoid undermining the judiciary's credibility on national television. Gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for joining us. I've been speaking with former APC governorship aspirant Victoria Amo. Anthony Ailebo is a legal practitioner who's also joined us. We also had Andrew Enweta, who's the lawyer who filed this case on behalf of his clients in court. This is a developing story, and we'll return to it subsequently. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. You can watch it again at midnight and at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Nifemi Oguntoye.